All right, everyone. We're on episode 11 of the Conquer the Mind podcast because now you know if you can conquer the mind, you can really conquer anything in this world. So today we have Paul Young on the podcast. He is in franchise development of Oasis Senior Advisors. So Paul has spent the last 20 years, leadership development, strategic planning, operations, really kind of working his way up the ladder and eventually made the leap into franchising pretty recently. Actually moved from New England to Ohio, and he is a Bengals fan, so I'll try not to hold that against him too much. But he is here today, very gracious of his time to talk about himself, his background, his perspective, and also the opportunity with Oasis Senior Advisors, which is kind of like the real estate agents of senior care, where they offer seniors and their families a trusted and knowledgeable guide to help them navigate the choices and find the ones that's just right for their lifestyle, their budget, their preferences. And I can go on, and we're going to dive into that on the podcast. But Paul, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Perfect introduction. And if things don't work out with JD Strategic, I think you got a spot over on Oasis. That was perfect. Great summary.
Awesome. I'm ready. It's so funny because I always kind of describe myself as like the real estate agent of franchising, where kind of like a realtor, you're not paying me for anything. I just figure out what you're looking for. I qualify you, and then I really align that with the best opportunities. And that's really what you guys do for senior care. So I kind of play on those words as well.
And that's exactly how I describe it when I meet with prospective candidates as well. So perfect analogy.
That's awesome, Paul.
That's
So
awesome, Paul.
was there a little echo on that for you?
It's not on my end.
All right, maybe. Oh, we are through. We got the first technical difficulties of the podcast, folks. All right, we should be good though. Okay, so basically, as you know, when I kind of start off the episodes, I like to kind of dive into people's background a little bit, especially as kind of a younger entrepreneur. I feel like there's a lot of people kind of in their 20s, not even high school, but college, even people in their 30s, 40s, 50s kind of feel lost in life. And I always think it's very beneficial to really have these perspectives of people that have really achieved so much success, but it always started from one place. So trying to understand the different backgrounds of different people. So when you're in college, you're 20, 21, 22, what's kind of life look like for Paul? What's kind of your daily life look like? Was business always your direction kind of growing up? What did things look like growing up?
Yeah, great question. And I think it's a great question. I was watching some of your previous interviews, so I did my due diligence. So I was hoping I was going to get asked this question. So I did a lot of reflection on that. And a little genesis on me. I wasn't expecting to go to higher education. I assumed I was going to be in civil service, be a fireman, a police officer, or join the military, as a lot of other male role models in my circle growing up. I was pretty lucky and fortunate and got accepted into a program for first generation low income students. And I actually went to school after my senior year before the start of my fall semester. And they basically, it was kind of a preparatory bridge program. And they had you read a book. And I still have the book today. It's called I don't get no kickbacks on it. It's called McDonaldization of Society. And it basically has four main pillars: efficiencies, calculability, predictability, and control. And that was eye-opening for me. And that was really my first formal introduction to franchising. And so I think from that moment on, I think it really kind of accelerated my interest in entrepreneurship, and the benefits of a franchise model and all the things that come along with it. And so I think that was a really great book. Even further, even kind of going back a little bit further than that, I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. And if anybody's familiar with the Yum brands, one of the largest franchises in the world, KFC, Taco Bell, are right in my backyard. And so I was always noticing the owners of these franchises were some of the most financially successful people. So I kind of always looked up to them. My
Yeah.
first job in eighth grade, I was 14. It was called Tumbleweed Southwest Mesquite Bar and Grill. They're still around. They're more of a regional player in the franchising space. And that was my first job. And so with that, I got to know the owners. They took a chance in me as a 14-year-old, and I did everything from busing to cleaning tables to being a gopher, which is a title for go for this to go for that. And so I've always kind of been involved in the franchising space, been interested, but my career took me elsewhere. As I
Mm.
said, I was the first in my family to go to college and had some great mentors. And so I felt a calling to kind of give back. And so I was in higher ed for a really long time for the first 15 years or so of my career. A little bit before COVID, I kind of pivoted to a hybrid between higher ed and healthcare, and worked in graduate medical education, kind of training the future doctors of America and the world, and fellowships and assistantships. And then my wife got headhunted. We relocated, as you said, from New England to Ohio. But yes, I'm a Bengals fan, but I'm also a Buckeye fan. So go Bucks. Um, and I actually was gonna
Cheers.
get a the swamp. I see it. I see it, Josh. So I was trying to figure out what to do. I did some kind of independent research. I didn't know about franchise consultants at that point, and I had actually planned on buying an Oasis Senior Advisor. So reached out, and they uh, communicated to me that there was not a territory available in Columbus, Ohio. Unbeknownst to me, that was internal jargon. And I was like, no, Columbus is booming. It's one of the fastest growing markets in the state. And then they educated me, and I quickly, they offered me some opportunities in the state. My wife didn't want to relocate. And so they said, hey, there's an opportunity to help grow our brand. Have you ever thought about going into franchising or going into sales? I had, and I knew about the brand and gotten to meet some of the leadership there. And I've been here since March.
Mm, that's really interesting. And something I always emphasize, and I think everyone in franchising really emphasizes, is really the education process. Like, no one's ever really trying to like force you to sell anything, because really the worst thing any like franchise can do is, award territory to someone that doesn't want to actually grow and scale a business. So I think that's a really cool point where, you thought about buying a franchise, you kind of went through the process, and then you made the decision to become, a franchise developer. I think that would be really interesting for the listeners to kind of understand, because there's a lot of stories like that where sometimes someone may end up becoming a franchise consultant after going through the education process. So I think a lot of times, especially in franchising, you go online, you get messaged by 20, 30 different people. It can be super overwhelming thinking everyone's trying to sell you something, but it's really just not the case. Could you kind of walk people through what that kind of education process was like when you were kind of interested in Oasis?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Before I do that, I want to kind of go back. I spent about 10 years working in the School of Business at the University of Connecticut. And I worked really closely with a lot of the leadership, administration, the faculty, and the students. And considering the percentage of the market that is impacted by franchising, it's astronomical
Mm.
that is not part of the core curriculum and development and education of our future business leaders. And so it was a major blind spot for me. And so, I think it's amazing that there are people like you, Josh, that are out there that can kind of help individuals like me that are navigating this and trying to figure out that next step and want to go with a trusted, proven model like a franchise. So
Yeah.
for me, I was at a pivot point. On the genesis of that is my mother-in-law passed away, so we kind of moved because of that. My wife is an eye doctor. She got headhunted. We both met at Ohio State a couple decades ago, and so
Yeah.
she wanted to get back home. And so they gave me an opportunity to kind of really reflect. Like I said, I'd always kind of wanted to be an entrepreneur. Be my own boss, if you will. And so, hey, this became a great opportunity for me to pivot.
Yeah.
And so I did some reflection, and I first and foremost, my background in business, I said, I need to figure out identify markets. So
Mm.
that needed to be key. So most people are familiar with the silver tsunami, of which the youngest of those baby boomers still haven't even turned 65. So I knew for decades to come,
Yeah.
anybody that's going to be in the senior care space, there's going to be a huge demand and a huge market financially and opportunities there. And then I didn't share this earlier, but I was actually raised by my grandmother. And recently we had to go through a similar circumstance where it was towards the end of life. And as a lot of Americans, we kick the can, hope that day would never come
Mhm.
until it does. And then it can be really challenging. And so I had firsthand experience of that. And I luckily leveraged some of the services through Oasis and saw it firsthand and said, okay, well, this is amazing product, great service.
Yeah.
And I could see myself doing it as well, which was key. That fit is going to be key with any opportunity. And so I really did my independent research. I was going online. Luckily, there's great resources. And I reached out to a development. They kind of walked me through the process. And then as I was going through the process, I learned more while I was doing my due diligence. And after, chatting with the wife and her letting me know that we weren't moving anytime soon. And so I say yet because I still think there's opportunity. So that makes, this makes it very authentic for me to be able to represent this brand as, as a consumer of it, as someone who's kind of gone through this process and kind of believe in it. Yeah, so that's a little bit of background and kind of my process in learning about Oasis and the world of franchising.
No, that's really powerful, and a couple really interesting things with just the idea of KFC being in your backyard, like all these big franchises, and people think McDonald's, Subway, KFC, like those are the franchises that people think about, and it was in your backyard, and you still talk about, going to school and still not having an understanding of what franchising is. So I just, that's kind of the mission as well. You see the blue and orange in the back screen. I did the Gator, I graduated from University of Florida. And just like everyone else, I had no idea what franchising was and really what the opportunity is and really how it aligns so well for all these different participation types, all these different people. So yeah, I think it is really powerful, what we're doing on the call. And really, I would just want to give a quick shout out to really, I think the only university in the country that really does promote entrepreneurship and promote franchising is in Palm Beach Atlantic University. Dr. John Hayes, with the help of the Ray Titus Foundation, they're doing tremendous work helping college kids get educated about the opportunity in franchising, literally providing real life internship experiences for these students. And, I was there firsthand last week, and I've never seen college kids so motivated and have such a solid understanding of, kind of what they want to do in life. And, watching them formally present to, crowds of dozens of high level executives, they were fearless and they had so much confidence on their life. And for me, I was very lost at that age. I would have done anything to have learned some of these skills. So I think that's really powerful, and kind of weaving into what you said with, growing up with your grandmother. I know you also kind of mentioned military background. Can you kind of talk about the importance of mentors kind of while you were growing up and how that kind of shaped your journey? And you also mentioned kind of being the first to graduate. Like that's a really big accomplishment as well. So I'm sure there was some sort of like, what kind of got you to be able to even get there? It was probably, I know you mentioned the gopher mentality, and I'm sure that probably played a strong role in it.
Yeah, great question. Before we do that, I want to second what you were talking about the Titus Center. Amazing leadership, great program. I think they're innovative, and I think there's going to be a lot more of that to come. And so, if any of your listeners are looking for opportunities to kind of learn more, get involved, I would definitely encourage them to check that out. My introduction to that is relatively new, being in this space, but actually, one of their students reached out to me, saw my profile, and reached out to me. And I was recently at an international franchise conference and got a chance to meet some of these amazing students who I'm confident are going to be destined to greatness. And a lot of that has to do with the leadership and opportunities and exposure they're getting at these really critical ages. So yeah, a great program. So going back, you kind of broke it down into kind of mentors and the military experience. And so, I played sports growing up a lot. And so athletics played so my coaches were a big influencer, and probably still today and even then was my faith. That's a big part. I identify as a Christian, and that's been a big part of my life journey. I was pretty precocious as a kid, and for whatever reason I was very independent at a young age. Part of that was circumstances and stuff like that. So but I think what the mentors and my faith taught me was to, if you're willing to bet on yourself, and if you're willing to work hard, and you persevere, you can be resilient, that things are going to fall into place. And so, I think that's an entrepreneurial mindset that's going to make you successful in many aspects of your life. And, with that being said, this is all on the shoulders of others, of giants ahead of me and things like that. So, my grandmother, I absolutely was a major influence, spiritual leaders, coaches. And then when I got to higher education, I learned the importance, and I was coached to proactively seek those out. And that's something I still do to this day. And I think that that's really important. And I think that there's some parallels in the work that we do now. in franchising. It's really, really important. You can say this, and it's not cliche, is the importance of relationships and
Mm.
in developing deep interpersonal relationships built on trust. And when you do that, you have people you can lean on, not just in the tough times, but in the good times, to kind of aspire to reach your highest and best potential, and not just supporting you, because that's important, but also challenging you and saying, hey, here's opportunities for you to pivot, autocorrect, and continue to grow. And so that's kind of been some philosophies that's been bestowed upon me by others. And hopefully now that I'm getting a little bit older in age, although my last name is Young, I try to say forever young. I'm starting to be able to pass that torch down a little bit as well, while also maintaining those mentoring relationships as well. And so,
No, that's really
no,
powerful. And
that's really
one of the things I always say, and kind of one of my mentors taught me, is this idea of kind of learning to earn to return. So I really just align so much with kind of what you said, just trying to learn all these.
Josh, is that your dad? Because I saw that he was your mentor in your third interview there. I was watching that the other day. That was great. No
He
pressure filling his shoes, by the way, coming in after him.
Yeah, he is definitely my mentor, but I have hundreds of mentors, and especially nowadays, utilizing social media, there's so many mentors that don't even know what my name is, but I consider them a mentor still.
I think that that's an astute point, and I neglected to mention that, but I think there's lots of people that I follow through social media and through books and through reading is also another form of mentorship and guidance that I have as well.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so powerful. I kind of like to say I had like a YouTube crash course education, just trying to learn as much as you can. And you literally can learn as much as you can. It's just trying to weave out all the stuff that's not beneficial and not helpful. But it takes time to do so. But I think
Absolutely.
one thing that I want to dive into before we kind of dive into Oasis and your time kind of finding out about that opportunity, kind of dive in, because I know you kind of worked your way up the ladder kind of in corporate America, working with C-suite executives. So I think that's super beneficial too, because a lot of people in
Yeah.
franchising, they're in that world making that transition. And a lot of people are wondering
Yeah.
kind of what the skills are to make it to franchising. What were your positions in corporate America? What were your kind of roles like? And then kind of we'll transition into franchising later on.
Yeah, great question. And there's a term I hear in the industry. It's called corporate refugees, and it's often referred to people that are in the corporate world that are either looking to um, for change, or they're seeing that they may be stuck or in middle management, and seeing that as they move up the ladder, there are fewer opportunities, and based on maybe who's there, seeing that the pipeline may be drying up or a longer process than they like. I also run into a lot of prospective candidates that are saying, I'm spending a lot of my time and energy and I'm creating great value for X company. If I took that same sweat equity and invest in myself, what could that do for me, my family, and potential generational wealth? And so I think there's a lot of truth to that, not just for Oasis, but lots of brands in this space. And so totally, these are a lot of the types of clients that we work with. We have a lot of owners within Oasis Senior Advisors that are coming from the corporate world. Kind
Mhm.
of how I got there, a lot of it's going to be luck, as part of it, it's right time, right place, you know, following through, producing at a high level. It opens lots of doors, also being mobile. I think that I was lucky that I moved because, sometimes if you're one company or one organization and you're finite, you got to cast a wide net. And so being able to move where those opportunities presented themselves was an opportunity there as well. And then, I think just kind of given the nature of some of the works and the aspects that I was working on, I just happened to be at the seat of the tables of some of these key stakeholders or
Mhm.
key playmakers, if you will, within these industries that are making these decisions. But a
Yeah.
lot of those folks, in my experience, were usually previous administrators or practitioners that have kind of risen the ranks as well. And so kind of having that foresight and experience so they understand the entire business, if you will, because coming from healthcare and higher education have parallels to the corporate world, but they're unique industries as well. And so, for me, in higher education, kind of I started in housing, and so it's unique and it's kind of a foundational. You're working with people from all aspects of their life holistically, and so having that experience kind of doesn't pigeonhole you or put you into one niche market. And so that gives you a lot
Yeah.
of transferable skills you can pull into other areas versus maybe in a corporate area where you start in marketing and you're kind of in a silo. I kind of started in more of a generalist positions and then took on it, increased the leadership roles and responsibilities. One of the biggest ones was taking on human capital and managing and supervising and directing those folks, which has its own unique sets of challenges and opportunities. I also work with a lot of candidates that are no longer liking that or not wanting to do that. And that's one of the good opportunities is in Oasis or a lot of franchises, you don't have to manage human capital. But if you aspire to do that or you want to scale your business, you also have that opportunity. So it gives a lot of flexibility to prospective candidates. And so, I tend to consider myself a little bit of a jack of all trades,
Mhm.
kind of being a universalist and being able to do lots of things. I think is gonna make you the most valuable. When you talk about conquering the mind as kind of your mantra, I think that's also, being able to be a generalist, being able to have a specialization, but also being able to be good at many things is going to, as we know, as economies, as culture and things change, being able to be adaptive and fit into any environment that you're put into, I think is going to be a huge benefit for myself. It's something I aspire and try to be intentional about.
Yeah, no, 100%. You're mentioning some key words as someone is thinking about being a franchise owners, being that gopher, being that go-getter, someone that's willing to really make things happen and really take that control is always such a powerful skill. So I think that's really beneficial. And just the idea of working with C-suite executives, navigating yourself in all these different departments, like you're just learning all these different skills that you can kind of learn, kind of play off in all these other roles later down the road. So I think that's really beneficial. And now kind of diving into franchising a little bit. So you're kind of in corporate world somewhat, but how do you make that transition to franchising? Were you kind of experiencing burnout to a certain extent? Were you looking for that next opportunity? Or did franchising just kind of like fall into your lap, or what was it?
Situational. So I was lucky. I was at the top of my professional career. I was doing well, getting compensated well, and we moved because of life. And I kind of followed my wife, happy life, as they say. And so I followed her, and we made a strategic decision for the family. And so at that point, I decided, I had the opportunity to continue to explore additional opportunities, kind of stay what I was doing. I knew long term that wasn't going to necessarily going to work just geographically. We're moving halfway across the country, and so that's where I kind of was talking about. I wanted to explore markets and then opportunities, and that's how I kind of moved into Oasis. And then as going through the process and not being viable as a Columbus market because it was actually already owned where I lived, and it's one of our
Yeah.
most successful owners. I've since then gotten to meet him, and then not being able to relocate because my wife decided this is where we're going to stay. The doors kind of opened up, and I've been drinking through a fire hose, as they say, over the last almost 8 months now, 9 months.
That's awesome. Sounds like it worked out really well, and you can hear kind of the passion in your voice, which is awesome. And I love the faith, family, and franchising, the three F's. I think they align really well. And now you made that transition to Oasis. When you were thinking about potentially being a franchise owner, was that the only opportunity you were looking at? Were you looking at other opportunities on top of that? How did you kind of, because there are so many different franchise opportunities. What was it about Oasis specifically that kind of grabbed your attention?
Yeah, I think first, like I said, as I looked at the market, I
Yeah.
knew that I wanted to bet on myself. I knew I wanted to go to a proven model franchising. So I narrowed those things down. And so then it was kind of the market. What kind of industry do I want to go into? Landed on the senior. That was a big, big umbrella. Didn't know what that was. And then I narrowed it down. Well, what do I want to do? Do I want to do something where what are my skill sets? So what's going to be a good fit for me? And so a consulting kind of role kind of made a lot of sense to me. Then I
Yeah.
looked at some of the major players in the space. And then we just happened to have connections with the brand. So I knew of it. And so it was something I could trust. I've seen the products of the business model. And so I knew that was going to be easy for me to get behind. Then I went on and kind of did my own due diligence, discovered the notion of an FDD and what that was. And once I saw that, that turned it was all gold from there because it kind of sold itself from there. That you hear I think it's a great commercial, a great notion. Show me the Carfax. I think the
Yeah.
Carfax in franchising is the FDD. And
Yeah.
it's trust but verify. So you have all these, you can romanticize, you can but then when you see that, it's like, okay, and if that's a green light, then let's go. And so that kind of what got me there. And that was kind of the layers that I went through to kind of get to where I was at today.
No, that's really
And then
powerful.
once it didn't open up, once the Oasis, me being that owner, wasn't there, had to, reflect. And I met with leadership, and they knew me and knew my story, and said, hey, this is a great opportunity for you to represent our brand,
Yeah.
help us grow. And I think this would be a great opportunity, knowing your background. And what do you think about? There's a lot of opportunities. Franchising is an amazing culture. It's a great community.
Yeah.
They work really closely together. There's a lot of support. And so in my head, I would kind of think, hey, this is almost like an MBA and a franchising, while I'm also being able to represent a brand that I really believe in. I've
Yeah.
seen it do well, and I know from the FDD that our owners are happy and successful financially. And so one of the things I say a lot when I'm meeting with prospective candidates, there's lots of opportunities where you can take your time and talent. But I would say there's fewer times where you can match profit and passion. And I think this is one of those opportunities where you can do that. And I think when that happens and it's unique and that's an aspirational goal of prospective owners, then that's a great opportunity. And so this is an easy brand to represent
Mm.
um, because of that.
No, yeah, it's really powerful. And it's always really one of the first things I hear with anyone I speak to is really the FDD. Although people don't know what an FDD is 95% of the time, people want to see what those numbers look like. They want to see the earnings claims, they want to see the revenue. And, that's why I just need to emphasize it really is that education process where once you feel comfortable, they'll show you literally the keys to Disney World, for example. Like you're going to see every little secret behind the scenes. So, you don't need to. I always kind of say to candidates, a lot of times they have all these questions on the first call, and I can already see them, like they're going to be up late at night thinking about all these different things. And I tell them, like, I don't want you up late at night. Like, we've already done the heavy lifting, so you don't have to do this. We're going to put you through the step-by-step process to get every question you're thinking about answered, and then the 100,000 questions you aren't even thinking about, we'll start to get you thinking about those too. So I think that's really powerful, and I think it's really interesting how even without a consultant, you use a lot of like common sense with franchising, looking for that brand that's well established. Especially, I always say, if you're someone, especially someone from corporate America, trying to hedge your risk to a certain extent, you're typically not looking for an emerging brand where you have to typically sell a new good or service to a market. You typically want something that's more well established. You can see the FDD in numerous other locations that really replicate the market that you're trying to go in. So it just makes the education process so powerful. And another thing you said is just, would someone else, or someone that I always think about is, would someone use that service? And, you kind of dove into the market demographics, and unlimited people are really in need of the service. So it really just supplies such a powerful business model. And then you combine, like you said, the passion with the profit is so powerful, where a lot of candidates are not just looking for ways to make money. They want to actually be passionate when they wake up. They want to make that impact. They want to help other people. And I think that's what's so powerful about this opportunity is combining both of those different worlds while also having control over your future, being your own boss, and then having these established systems in place. So I think that's awesome, Paul. I just wanted to kind of dive into that real quick. So
Yeah.
now, you made the decision, you're in franchise development at Oasis. Can you kind of walk us through, for someone that has no idea kind of what senior care is? There's home service senior care, there's retail options in senior care. Can you give someone like an overview of what the senior care market looks like for someone kind of interested? And then we'll start to dive into Oasis.
Absolutely, absolutely. And before I do that, just to kind of echo what you're talking about, you articulated it so well. And this is where having someone like you in my corner when I was going through the process would have been infinitely beneficial. But I was looking for the brand. I didn't have the words to articulate it like you did, but you're completely right. I know this now. There's certain milestones in the franchising world. The number of years, the number of franchises are predictive indicators of success and where you're at within your trajectory as a brand. And so, you know, completely right. And I think that obviously you're a wonderful consultant because of your knowledge and expertise and your ability to articulate that. But so let's start. I think you did a great job of selling this from the jump. When I meet with a prospective candidates, Josh, I'll use you as one, and we're getting to know each other, and I'm kind of trying to sell the brand. I like to just explain, as for a novice, doesn't have any context, because I want to paint a picture, and I want them to be able to also articulate this to their partner or their friends when they're explaining it, and to really wrap their head and say, think of yourself as a realtor for seniors and their adult caregivers. So I'll break that down. Realtors is pretty self-explanatory, but what I like about that is most people aspire to buy a home or have done this. And so that helps them understand who you are. And this is something they can share with their clients. They can share this with referral partners, and they can share this with communities where they're going to be referring these seniors. And the other thing that most people are familiar with is that as the buyer or as a realtor, you're not paying anything as the buyer. Same thing. These seniors, this is a free service. That's really important. Free, free, free. It's a free service to seniors and their adult caregivers to help guide them through the process of figuring out whether it be assisted, independent, or memory care, end of life care. And the reason I also mention the adult caregivers is because those are critical components. The average age of a senior we're placing is 81 years old. And so think of it as you're going to be working with 70, 80, and 90-year-old seniors, and you're likely going to be working with their 40, 50, and 60-year-old adult caregivers. And so not always, but a lot of times that happens to be the oldest female. So I'll use my scenario. My mom, Renee, God forbid this were to happen, they're likely going to be working with one of my older sisters, right? I'm going to be there in support, but it may be in a tertiary role. And so you, as the owner, Josh, you'd be working with my mom and my sister Megan and helping guide us. What you would do is you would leverage our proprietary technology. It's called Oasis IQ, and really that kind of serves three purposes. It helps you run your business, your billing, your invoicing, your marketing, your customer relationship management side of the house. It's also going to be that intake. It's going to be the questions you're going to be asking, the placement, their budget, their goals for these communities. So think of it as like an MLS listing or Zillow, or maybe even going to hotels.com. These are resources people are familiar with, where you're going to ask a series of questions. And then what's going to do is it's going to populate a list of matches. And that's what we give your clients, is so they get a portal that's going to list all these communities. And from there, your next job would be to, leverage your expertise in the community, because you're going to know all these communities where you'd be referring these seniors to. And then you would go with them on a site visit, much similar to if you were buying a home and your realtor went with you. When you narrow your homes down to your first 3 condos, or if you're in somewhere beautiful like sunny Florida like you, or maybe someone in the Midwest, you're going to the suburbs. They're going to go there with you and kind of be there in support. And the other thing I kind of talk about, you said a keyword earlier, is educators. So our owners kind of wear 3 main hats: educators, administrators, and counselors. They're educating them in the senior living space. What does that mean? Like I said earlier, they've either kicked the can, hope this day would never come, but now it's here, and they're scared, they're nervous. And so that's where that counselor hat comes on. A lot of these seniors or their adult caregivers know that this is likely the last place that mom or dad or whoever that significant person is going to be living. And so there may be tears, and you're going to be able to counsel. But the beautiful part of that is what comes after that. Once you help them find that home or that place that they're going to be living, you're an extension of the family. You're going to get cards. You're going to get invited to things and milestones. And so you were there. And then the other one is administrative. You're going to own a business. You have to have business acumen. And so luckily, we do a great job of automating, standardizing, and continuously improve that, so that you can focus on the core, which is meeting with these seniors and helping them find a home.
Yeah.
And so that's a very quick overview. Hopefully that paints a little bit of a picture for you. And if you want, ask questions to kind of help me bring this home or educate the audience.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely kind of dive into some more specifics. And I think it really dives into, you kind of brought up the McDonald's book to start, and dive into the predictability and the control, especially, you're taking out the predictability, you have the demographics. Although, do you want to actually just pause, and do you want to give the audience, what do like the demographics look like You mentioned kind of like the silver fox population. What does kind of the aging demographic look like? And, what does some franchise owner potentially have to look forward to with the opportunity in that market?
Yeah, the numbers are astonishing. There's going to be a huge transition of wealth in America for decades to come. And so the market's huge. And I think better than kind of rattling these off the top of my head, what I'll do is afterwards I'll send these and we can put these in the show notes or whatnot to share them because I think they're really great. And they're more
Yeah,
importantly, I can send you some link to some articles that are peer reviewed. They're not just stuff that we're kind of throwing up on the spot. But a couple
perfect.
facts that I think are really, really important that I think are important to kind of paint a picture is 7 out of 10 seniors are going to need long-term care in their life. And
Mhm.
so most Americans, and we'll be there one day, want to age in place. So in-home care is a huge growing space, and there's a huge demand, a huge need for it. But it's a completely different model, right? You're going to be actually caring for folks in their home. You're going to be having staff. We are not that. Those tend to be a large referral partner for us. But what ends up happening is one of two things. One is either the care or the need that they have far exceeds what they can be provided in that in-home care, or what often happens as well is it becomes cost prohibitive, right? Just the cost to be monitored 24 hours a day can far exceed most families' budgets. And so let's say you have early onset dementia, Alzheimer's, and you're going to need 24-hour monitoring or medical staff on site 24/7. Leveraging a community where you can share some of those resources can reduce your cost. And so
Wow.
that's a big fact. So 7 out of 10 seniors are going to need our services or are going to be going to long-term care, and they can either do that independently and go online, which most seniors are not going to do. They're going to do that to confirm or verify the brand or you, Josh, as the certified senior advisor, but they're not
Okay.
doing that to make this decision. They're leveraging their most trusted partners. And who are those folks? Social workers, nurse practitioners, leaders within their faith community, their lawyers,
Yeah.
their attorneys. And so that's another critical component of our business model is we're a business to business.
Mm.
And so you as an owner will develop and cultivate those relationship partners. We're going to help you do this. We've done it with over 100 owners. We have over 120 franchises throughout the country. And so we know how to do this. We can do it well. Over a quarter of all of our referrals are coming from hospitals and skilled nursing facilities. And so the example is my mom, let's say Renee, she breaks her hip. We get a call,
Yeah.
hey, mom's in the hospital. And this is a very common stereotypical, but it helps paint a picture for you and the listeners. Is we get the call, she's recovered, she's out of surgery, and now she's going to have to go to a rehabilitation center, something they used to call back in the day. Now some of the jargon and lingo is a SNF or a skilled nursing facility. We're going to do intensive 2 week training, get your mom back, but we don't think she's going to be able to go back home, or the in-home care is not going to be going to meet her changing health needs. Have you thought about what the plan is? And once again, the answer is no. The
Mm.
hospitals or skilled nursing facilities, these nurses or social workers oftentimes are going to say, hey, Josh, here's a list of communities. Good luck. And that's not because they don't want to sit down and advise or counsel you. It's because, as someone who worked in healthcare, they're having to go on to their next patient and their next patient, right? And
Mm.
so, what the difference is now they're going to say, hey, Josh, they're going to say, hey, Paul, let me introduce you to Josh. He's one of our certified senior advisors. He's worked with hundreds of our seniors and helping you find the next best home. And
Mm.
then that's kind of the handoff. And that's a very common pipeline. And then you would kind of,
Yeah.
like I said, leverage that technology, go to the site visit, and then as an owner, the way that the compensation works is you get a referral fee, and that referral fee is going to be your first month plus care costs of the seniors.
Mm.
And that becomes a big benefit to a lot of these senior communities because it cuts their costs because they don't have to have staff that's going to be meeting because you're kind of filtering those out, and you're going to only refer seniors to communities where all their match criteria works, and most importantly, they have space in that community for you.
Mm. That's really powerful. And just to be clear, so to start up Oasis Senior Advisors, it's a home service opportunity, correct?
No, no, it's so we're not doing any in-home care. So we're counseling or advising seniors on the communities that are there. And so you'd be working with a third party that's not Oasis. And so we have
Yeah,
partnerships
I
already
think
with
I misclarified. So if someone were to particularly start an Oasis, would they need like an office space?
no,
Or is
no.
it like they're just working out of home, or what does that look
They
like?
could. So great questions. So I think kind of what we're talking about. Sorry, and this could be me. My apologies as
No, I
well.
just wasn't clear
So
on that. And I think what you were talking
so
about is
we are
also
not a we
something I
are
want to dive into, but yeah, keep going. My bad.
you're good. So we are not a brick or mortar. So you do not
Yeah.
have to. Now that doesn't mean some of our owners uh, do actually have a brick or mortar building, but most don't. And that's
Okay.
one of the big things that appeals people, including me, when I was looking at this opportunity, is the barrier of entry is very low. You don't
Yeah.
require staff. You don't need brick or mortar. Your risk is really low because you're not transporting, you're not caring for these seniors, and that
Right.
also lowers your initial investment as well. And
Mhm.
so everything's going to go through that proprietary technology I was talking about, Oasis IQ. And so everything's going through the cloud. So your business side, that matching technology, and then their portal that'll show them the communities they match for. This is all going through the web. And so as long as you have a laptop, a computer, or a
Yeah.
tablet, you're mobile and you're meeting these seniors where they're at, whether that be their home, maybe going into the hospitals, these skilled nursing facilities, or sometimes they may meet like at a Starbucks or somewhere like that.
No, that's really
Shout out to another
powerful.
franchise. See what I did there?
No shout outs here, only Oasis. But the reason why I was kind of stepping on you there a little bit was because I just wanted to make sure that there is, because when you think senior care, it's kind of like a brick and mortar or home service. And I think right now there's a huge tilt towards home services. But you mentioned that number
100%.
that 70% of those people are eventually going to have to transition to brick and mortar. So this opportunity really allows you to kind of ease that transition for those people. And we talk about kind of hedging your risk where you don't have that brick and mortar, but you're allowing that opportunity for people who all need that brick and mortar option. So I just think that's really powerful how it's a quick opportunity to get started. You're in such a booming industry and you're still kind of a home service, but really providing that transition. So I just think there's a lot of powerful things in what you said there. So kind of diving into
Thanks
someone
for
that,
clarifying that. I think that's a great way to explain it. I say I share this every day, so sometimes I can get excited and I forget, and so I think hearing this from an outside perspective, this is great and kind of can do a better job of painting the picture. But you're totally right. The in-home care is one pillar. The actual long-term care is another pillar, and we're a
yeah,
gap. We're a bridge that advise them in between those two communities, or whether they're coming directly from a hospital, or if they're doing this in advance and they're doing some advanced planning and they're at home and they're
yeah.
trying to say, "Hey, I want to do some independent care, but I don't know where to start." Let me introduce you to Josh. He'll guide you through the process and find a perfect place for you.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's really cool how you really are providing that bridge, and that's kind of a good transition into someone that does become a franchise owner. From my understanding, you have a very kind of consultative approach where it's very personalized solution. So could you walk us through, so you're meeting with someone, they have their, an elderly person in their 70s, 80s, 90s, they need to make that transition to in-person senior care facility. What does that process look like? So they're meeting with someone in their home, and then how do they actually find where to place that candidate?
Great questions. So first and foremost, it's relationship driven business. At the end of the day, I have to ask myself, if let's say it's my mother, Renee, and Josh here, the advisor, is do I trust Josh to
Yeah.
advise me with where my mom is most likely going to be the very last place that she's ever going to live? And if the answer is no, then this probably isn't a good fit for you or for us as a franchisor. And so in developing those interpersonal, deep trusting relationships, mission critical. So you've got to have empathy, you have to have compassion, you have to have high EQ, emotional intelligence. And then from there, what you're going to do is you're going to leverage our technology and you're going to ask a series of questions. Obviously, some of the most common ones: geographical location, budget, insurance, etc. But one of the areas that we're going to specialize in is what are called ADLs. This is a term in the business: activities of daily living. And so this is the question is, can you get yourself dressed? Can you make it to the restroom by yourself? Can you make your own meals? These type of questions, and the system is automated. I like to say, so easy a caveman could do it, right? We can
Yeah.
take people from all different walks of life. We don't want you, this is not what we want you to focus on. Is so we've developed the technologies based on your answer. It's going to prompt you to the next question. And on the back end, what that's doing is it's taking the repository of the 100 communities and it's narrowing it down. And
Mhm.
so then what'll happen is it's going to give you a match, and you're going to get your clients or the seniors and adult caregivers and get a portal, and it's going to say, "Hey, Paul, here are the 20 communities that Josh recommended for you. Now, Josh, where you as the actual certified senior advisor in the community, you're going to have visited all of the 100 communities, including the 20 that my mom matched with. And you're going to say something like this: hey, Paul, I know Renee's Catholic. I know she likes cars and she's super active. Here are the 20 communities we matched in. I go to these communities every day. I know the leadership. I know the vibe. I know what it smells like there. I'm going to recommend we go with A, B, and C. And I'm pretty confident that this is going to be a perfect fit for your mom. What do you think? And then that's where you're then going to go out and do the site visit for them to confirm whether or not X, Y, and Z community is going to be the best fit for you. And so we preload this information into Oasis IQ. And as a
Yeah.
new owner, what you're going to do is you're going to go out and meet these executive directors, because when you're counseling these or advising these seniors, you need to talk to them about what the community is really like. You know, there's the art and the science. The science, the quantitative data, we have that. We purchase it. It's in our Oasis IQ. The
Yeah.
art is you actually going in there and being able to kind of talk about those communities and what they feel like. And that's similar to the parallel with a realtor and understanding the local communities. And so one of the things that we really, our goal, aspirational, is that you as an owner are going to be the most trusted in senior care in your community. And so we want owner operators that have skin in the game in those communities and that are developing these trusting relationships. Because once my mom knows about this, every one of her girlfriends, everyone else in her groups are also going to know. And then that becomes another referral source for you as an owner.
Mm. That's really
Does that
interesting.
answer the question?
No, yeah, it does. And it leads me into kind of my next transition, kind of leading off of that. So they're kind of providing these consultation almost processes, kind of providing that gap from one place to the next of the 70% number that people really need. So now they're placing people into these senior care facilities. A lot of questions I hear from candidates on the phone is what kind of national relationships are in place. I know you kind of mentioned the referrals that you guys have, but could you just kind of make it clear for the viewers who may be interested? And I think that's just a really big point where people are trying to hedge that risk once again. How are those relationships in place? How am I getting the best access? You know, what's the advantage of franchising over trying to start something myself? So what kind of relationships and referrals are already in place if someone were to start their business on day one?
Great question. Great question. So let's say those 100 communities in your neighborhood, Josh, or your territory, we're going to have about 40 to 50 national and regional contracts with the large players. One that people are often familiar with is uh,
Yeah.
yeah, Brookdale is a large senior care community. It's nationally known. So we have those established. And I think the parallel with that is if you're for our older audience that's familiar with pharmacies, there used to be a lot of small mom and pops, but there tends to be mergers and they're getting scooped up. Same thing's happening in this space. So I would imagine that trend's only going to grow. And so those are from day one, you're able to start referring and collecting referral fees as an advisor. For the smaller or regional communities, let's say there's a community in your neighborhood that has 8, 12, 16 beds or space for seniors in them. We're going to have their information, but we don't have the contract under place. So what we would do is we're going to coach you. And when you go in there, they're going to be familiar with this process. They're going to know our brand because we're one of the big players in the space. What you're going to do is when you meet with them, you're going to share our contract with them, and then you're going to add them to our repository of communities under contract.
That's awesome. You guys really, like we talked about, having those systems in place for people to take that control of their future. So I just think that's really powerful for anyone potentially considering combining the passion with the profit there. So you kind of mentioned a little bit where talking about the owner operator there. Talk about, we talked about it's a two-way interview process. You know, you're one of the top opportunities in franchising. You guys get hundreds of leads every week. That's why you guys use brokers to get you the top qualified candidates. So talk to us. You guys meet a potential candidate, someone interested in franchising. It really is a two-way interview process. So what's the ideal candidate look like for Oasis Senior Advisors? You know, when we talk about those top 10% of franchise owners, what did they do that become so successful?
I think that's a great question. Probably one of the hardest ones to answer if I'm being candid,
Yeah.
right? And I think the reality of it is I think that we tend to want to have one variable and say this is it, and if you do this, this is replicable. But I think where the
Yeah.
magic is the ones who do it's multivariable and can do a lot of things really, really well. Some of the things I already mentioned, strong emotional intelligence. These people are going to have to work with people from all walks of life. And
Mhm.
so not everyone has that skill set, and so, I think that empathy, compassion are going to be mission critical, as I mentioned before. Being able to develop deep personal, interpersonal relationships built on trust, and that's important not just for the clients that you're working with, but on your other pipelines where you're getting these referral, these sources. Because if they don't trust you, they're not going to refer their seniors that they're working with, right? And so that
Yeah.
has to happen. But then also you need to be able to develop and maintain good working relationships with these communities where you're referring them, the seniors to. And so having some of that business acumen is going to be critical. And then I think a work ethic. I think that we all want to aspire to be successful, but we're not all created equal. And so I think that there's a level of reality there. And how much time and energy can you put into this to grow your business? Are you willing to bet on yourself?
Yeah.
And so luckily we have lots of systems in place to support our owners and coach them throughout the process, not just on the onboarding and during their training and during their first year, but their entire tenure with us. I think that's a
Yeah.
differentiator there for us that really allows our owners to be super successful.
Mm.
When you asked this question, I got sidetracked. I think there was kind of a couple parts for it. You're talking about the ideal candidate, but I think there was another part to the question.
Yeah, just when you look at the like top 10% of franchise owners, the ones that have been successful, now they're probably a couple of years in the system. What did they kind of do to be so successful?
Scaled their business. That is the easy one. So I'll use our unicorn, our outlier, our highest earner, and I'm going from the FDD from 2022, made 2.2 million. I
Mm.
share that because one is, if it's been done once, it can be done again, right? And there's nothing unique about that specific franchise. It's not geographically, it's not how many people live there. They've grown their business, they've applied the model. We have an internal mantra that says, uh, follow the system, right? If you're a basketball fan and you're familiar with a former NBA MVP, it was like, trust the process. So we have a proven system. If you follow that, and you don't have to recreate the wheel. We've done this for 10 years now, and there's a reasons why we have a lot of these systems in place. I think the other thing is we're a flat organization. We think great ideas can come from anywhere, and we're really committed to continuously improving. Our committees are chaired by our owners, and those ideas are constantly evolving on what we can do to best support our owners. But the ones that are most successfully financially are the ones that scale their business, and they can do that in a variety of different ways, whether that be, if they're reaching, we don't sell more than one territory to start, because we're really intentional about protecting the brand and being intentional and sustainable in our growth.
Mm.
But if you're reaching key performance indicators and that's something you aspire to do, we're going to coach and support you. It's going to be
Yeah.
mutually beneficial to you as the owner and us as a brand.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is maybe some of the business strategies that they leverage to scale their team. And
Mm.
so some of the strategies they're using is doing 1099s to incentivize that, give flexibility to their employees to reduce their cost.
Mm.
And then some of this is not just, I think, on the owner, but in the leadership in our strategy. So our our president and our chief operating officer and our business coach for all new owners are former owners. And so as the business grew, we only needed one employee when it just first started, right? With one shop in Maryland with the owner. But as he grew the business, he poached our most successful franchisees and said, hey, as we're going to grow, we're going to need support
Yeah.
centrally within the team to grow the brand, but most importantly, to coach our owners. And so there's a difference between having leadership that can anecdotally talk about something versus experientially talk about it, because they've gone to doors that people have said no's. They've had the challenges, they've had the triumphs, and they can talk about that. And I think that's a huge differentiator for our owners. And so, with that, the last thing I think of the variables is be coachable, right? And so
Yeah.
we hire a lot of really successful people that are coming from very successful previous careers, but just know that there's lots of expertise internally within our brand to help you leverage your already skill set and experiences while also leveraging the expertise of our leadership that we have here at Oasis. So
Mm. That's awesome, Paul. I think you did a really, really great job kind of summarizing that all up. And I know that hour is starting to wind down. So I want to be grateful of your time. But I think you brought up a really good point there with kind of the market. Sometimes with senior care, there's specific industries too, where someone might think it may be specific to one market where, you need to be in that market. Like, for example, senior care, it's like, I need to be in Florida or I'm not going to make any money. but you're in Ohio. Can you talk about kind of the different markets and how you guys have the processes, those systems in place where you'll show people the demographics of a market where they don't have to stay up late at night guessing how many customers am I going to have each week? They'll be able to figure it out.
Yeah, I think that's great. So just to help level set, we're in 35 states throughout the country already. And so there's nothing that's making one state more successful than the other. It's like I said, multivariable, but I think one of the biggest factors isn't necessarily the territory where people are living, because what we do is when we form the territories, we're being intentional about forming territories that's going to make our owners successful regardless of where they're at in the country. And so what we're going to do is we can't share all of this
Yeah.
because it's proprietary, but some of the stuff that we're using as predictive indicators is going to be the population of the territory is a no-brainer. But the other ones, over 27% of all referrals are coming from hospitals and skilled nursing facilities. So we require a minimum of 2,000 hospital beds, a minimum of 2,000 skilled nursing facility beds, because that's our primary pipeline. We also set up it geographically because there is going to be what we call windshield time, where you're going to be out on the road meeting your clients or visiting the senior communities, that it's navigable for our owners. And we also want to make sure that we're looking at the demographical breakdown, the socioeconomic status, the age breakdown within those territories, to ensure that you're not just successful on month one, year one, but your entire 10 years with us. And so by
Yeah.
doing that, we're setting up people to be successful wherever they're at. And so you could substitute, Miami, Florida, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But if you looked at the demographical data, they're going to parallel each other, and that's where the opportunities are. And so we're really intentional about that. And so we think that we can take owners from anywhere and place that same owner in a different geographical area and still be highly successful. With that being said, obviously you want to know that community because it's got to be authentic,
Yeah.
it's got to be genuine. And America's a big country, and there's going to be different communities and things like that. And so that's a key piece of it too. So
That's incredible, Paul. That's awesome. Well, this was amazing. And now we know it doesn't matter what market you're in. You don't have to be in Florida for senior care. It's profitable in any industry. And like we said, really the real estate agents of senior care. So one final question, Paul, as we kind of wrap up the hour, and we kind of touched upon it a little bit. And I know it's really big in your bio as well, but the idea of family, faith, and franchising, I think people would be surprised how religion plays such a strong role, especially in business owners and entrepreneurs, and whether it's religion or just an idea of having a bigger picture, this idea of something bigger than yourself, having something, whether it's family, a loved one, whatever it may be, just this idea of thinking about something outside of yourself each day, really I think is so powerful. And business owners, they're impacting the lives of not only their family but thousands of if not hundreds of thousands of lives in their local community. So I think it's really powerful. And can you just talk to us? You've been in franchising now, for a little bit. What are you ever thinking about leaving franchising? What kind of guides those three principles in your decision-making process?
well, I'm getting cold chills right now. You just asking that question, and I think this is the best question. And hopefully, if you chop this up, this can come up. Not my what I answered, but the fact that you asked the question. And I think, given my experience in the corporate world, whether that be in higher ed, healthcare, the public and private sector, from my experience, and I can only speak for mine, but I have lots of other friends and colleagues where um, your faith in certain aspects of your life have to be compartmentalized or closeted. And I can say with all authenticity that moving into the franchising space allows me to holistically be myself. And I
Yeah.
think that's important. I think that is been a game changer. And I think that's something that's going to make me stick in this space or stay in this space. And I think that's just the reality is we're complex, and we have people from lots of different walks of life. And so being able to be your true, genuine self, and when those you can match those things, I think that's where you can be your best self. And so I've been great to be in the franchising space, be within Oasis, but more importantly, you talked about the Titus Center. That's a religiously affiliated university, and so I've met so many wonderful people from different faiths and no faith, and that has been supported and has been amazing. And I'm super grateful that even the fact that I've had that question being asked, I feel bad because I wasn't prepared for it. Because
No.
just leveraging my previous experiences isn't something that gets talked about. It may be in private, outside you'd have your network, but it wasn't something that just even came to the forefront of the table. And I think it's important because the reality is you're, whether you're depending on your business model within franchising, your client, your customer, your patient, this is the reality of the world. People are complex and they have lots of things that make them who they are, and being able to talk about them holistic is really important. And in our business Oasis, that is something that is in the Oasis IQ. You have to talk about that. Is faith part of your decision of where you're going to live, right? And it's the reality for a lot of our seniors, particularly towards the end of their life, that that is a really important. Whether what that faith is may vary, but the fact that they have something, and that
Yeah.
may determine where they want to spend the end of their life.
No, I think that's really powerful. And I just wanted to I thought that'd be a good way to kind of wrap up the episode. And yeah, them just like you said, with the Titus Center, they are a religious affiliation. And I just think even just in the business world, like I said, whether it is religion, just this idea of having a bigger picture, I think is so important. And one of my mentors, I'll kind of wrap it up on this. He's a big component of things don't happen to you, they happen for you. So a lot of times our lives are really defined by usually a handful of events. And for a lot of successful people, those events were pretty negative events that really shaped their life. And it'd be very easy to say, this happened to me, the world stacked against me. But having that idea that those events just make you better, they make you a different version of yourself, I think that's really powerful. And a couple of great lessons learned today. You mentioned the caveman idea, the idea of in franchising, everything's so replicatable. They already have those systems in place. As long as you are that gopher that you mentioned at the beginning of the call, that go-getter, that's someone that does want to bet on yourself. That's someone that does want to take control of your future. And one other thing I thought that was important is that when I asked about the ideal candidate, there is no ideal candidate. It seems to be the recurring theme. There's people from all aspects of life. It's really just the one main theme of people that want to take control of their future, people that want to take those next steps. And I think this idea of faith, family, and franchising is just really powerful, and just having this bigger picture. And really, especially this week of Thanksgiving, we're recording, just having that gratitude for this. And for me, I know I'm super blessed in my life. So just want to express some gratitude to everyone out there. So happy, although this won't be posted this week, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Paul, I greatly appreciate your time today. I had an amazing time. I think the viewers learned a ton. So thank you so much for sharing your insights, your experiences, and the opportunity with Oasis Senior Advisors.
Likewise, brother, and all the best in all your future endeavors. And I'm gonna ask you to connect me with that mentor. It sounds like someone I'd love to add to my network as well.
It's another mentor that has no idea who I am and is on social media. Hopefully I can connect with
Done.
him one day though.
I love it.
But thank you so much, Paul. And
Likewise, to
also
more
everyone,
in 2024.
like, comment, subscribe, help out the algorithm if you like this video. Thank you so much, everyone.